haven't heard from Ross about that. So, Ross, you have a proposal which you're going to share with at least one of the banks this week. And it's a little bit complicated. If you'd summarise it, then I have a graphic which may demonstrate exactly what you have in mind.
We think this applies to about 80% of distressed mortgages. There's a 20% group that it won't apply to. So it applies to the vast majority. And what we do is we begin with a figure. This idea of having to go and meet the bank and decide how much you're going to pay, we're not interested in that. That's got to stop. And people should be asked to pay somewhere around 35% of their net disposable income.
So suppose you had €1,000 left at the end of the month, you'd be asked to pay 350.
After taxes, yeah. If your disposable income is €1,000, 350 is the most you're going to pay on mortgage repayments.
All right.
We take that figure, and then from that figure, we're able to work out the kind of mortgage that you can pay over whatever term it is. And using our maths and our systems, it is possible, in fact, with a restructuring of the mortgage, to pay a full amount over the term of the mortgage as originally set out. And you wonder, how could that possibly be? And it's just quite simple. Initially, in the current style mortgage, your first payment is the most expensive because you pay capital and you pay the interest on the whole lot. And your last payment is the cheapest because you've got very little interest to pay. And we simply flatline that. So if somebody's able to pay interest only, or even less, we can say to that person, pay that, be willing to grow that a little bit as years go by, and you can pay your entire mortgage off.
I think it's best for me to show this example. Yes. Ken, we're going to use your situation, if you don't mind, to demonstrate how this would work, and then you can tell me whether it appeals to you or otherwise. So if you remember, Ken bought for 340k, but of that he borrowed 315,000. The current market value of his home, as he told you, is only 90,000. So that is negative equity of €225,000. Now, currently his full payment, €1,450. But if it was interest only, he did a deal with the bank, that would be €917. If some of the interest was deferred, which the banks will do, 66 2/3%, that would bring it down to €605. But under the new beginning solution, Ken would pay 35% of his monthly net income. That would be €840, which is more than the deferred interest payment. But that would be equivalent of paying a mortgage worth €235,000. Now, the payment would then gradually increase by 3% a year for 10 years. But meantime, the balance, it's €80,000, that is placed on the shelf. No payment on that shelf money for 10 years at all, and it doesn't accrue interest. After 10 years, then, it comes into play, and Ken's payment would have increased to a maximum ever of €1,572, and the whole mortgage would be paid off in 31 years, which is already the agreed term of the mortgage. Now, there are three winners in all of this. The lender would stand to lose 225k today if Ken just handed back the keys and walked away. This way, it's all paid, except the interest on 80,000 for 10 years. Ken then has the satisfaction of paying out his mortgage. And thirdly, the state would not have to house Ken, for example, if he had nowhere to go. And he becomes a functioning spender in the economy. So it's win, win, win. Ken, I know it's a bit complicated, a bit sudden and all that. What do you think?
I'm very impressed. Just before I comment on that, if I could say, I can't understand why the 300,000 people in the country aren't fighting back more, you know, with these millstones around their necks. For example, I have a Facebook page, Irish Mortgage Debt Forgiveness. I have a book coming out. I'm fighting back. I know people like Caroline are fighting back, but many more people aren't. So just to point that out. But to come to this, it seems like an excellent solution. I mean, I didn't do honours maths in the leaving, but if the figures add up, it looks very good.
All right, just go back to you, Caroline. What would you think of a solution like that? Would that work for you? The numbers are different, but...
Yeah, I mean, it would be a starting point, certainly, because where I'm at for the last 10 months, the dialogue is one way. It's coming from me to the bank, and they're not coming with any proposals other than removing the house, basically. So anything that creates movement, I would be interested in.
Okay, yes,
if I could just say about that, and this is a problem, you see, if the banks deal with one customer on his or her own, they haven't a chance because they're up against the might of the banks. Our plan is to put this proposal to the banks, and we expect them to deal with us. If they don't deal with us, we'll go to court with these proposals, and I believe the courts, if they see a win-win-win solution, will be forced to force the banks to do it. And if that doesn't work, then we have to look at some sort of union of mortgage holders to demand this. I think waiting for government, waiting for banks is a mistake.
Okay, I know New Beginning has tried to take test cases.
Yes.
Which is the hard case, where you can pretty much prove that unethical lending has occurred. And the bank invariably, whichever bank it is, will actually settle and sort out the problem. So the person whose example you've taken will say, well, look, Ross, I'm sorry, I have to take their offer. It's so good, and I'm bound by confidentiality. So test cases are never going to make it to the courts, because the banks will always settle them, won't they?
That is often the case. But what we're dealing with here is a very important situation, I believe. Borrowers on their own will be beaten by the banks. So we have to come together. And this is a proposal which gives the banks more money than they get under repossession, allows the person pay down their loan. This interest only is for mugs, because you're paying the interest and you're going nowhere. It's like a bicycle with no chain. It's just storing up problems into the future. This allows people pay down their loan, allows normality back into the system. And okay, the bank have to take some pain in the short term, but it's a solution, and we're going to go to the banks. We hope they'll deal with us, but if they don't, I believe the courts can be used, and if that doesn't work, then I think people have to come together.
Kieran, I know you've just seen this proposal for the first time, and it is a bit complicated, but we've looked at it, and it does seem to be win-win-win, win for the state, win for the banks, strangely enough, and win for the borrower.
No, I haven't seen Ross's proposal in greater detail, but the type of thinking that is being presented here this evening is exactly the type of thinking that government wants to hear.